Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to our third episode of ARIVE Tenacity Talks. This is a new podcast series that we launched where we invite business legends and entrepreneurs to talk about their stories and uncover their secrets of success, which can hopefully inspire all of you and make your business also grow. Today, I'm absolutely delighted to host someone I admire. So we have Eddy Perez. He's the CEO or Chief Wrestler of Egos, as he calls it. We'll ask him what that means, coming from Equity Prime Mortgage. So he started that company back in 2008. He aspired to be a baseball player, if you listen to his story, and somehow shifted to mortgages. He is a first generation Cuban. So his father struggled a lot, came to this country, got his freedom, became an entrepreneur, and a lot of his life is inspired by his father. So without further ado, we want to hear everything about you, Eddie, and we will talk about empowerment today, what it means to you, to your company, to your
Sure.
business. Why do you believe buying home is an American dream? So we have a lot to cover. But first of all, I want to thank you for joining us and welcome.
Well, thanks, Harish. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, as you requested, this is completely unscripted. Eddie doesn't know what's up coming at him, so I did prepare a few questions just before this session to keep it organized. So your father's journey from Cuba and all the struggles he had to US,
Mhm.
how did it inspire your life? What impact it had on your life? Maybe we start with that.
Well, the impact was both my parents because they both came from Cuba, and coincidentally, they didn't meet till they got here in the United States, as they didn't know each other back home. Obviously, my father's was a little bit more intense, I would say, because my mother, she had grown up. My grandfather in Cuba had grown up and had accumulated wealth before it was taken, and but before it was taken, he was able to get her off to Spain on a boat. My father wasn't as fortunate because he grew up, he grew up very humble in Cuba. So for his means to get here, he and six others had to essentially they stole a rowboat and rowed to freedom 3 days at sea. So that has always been a huge impact on my life because it's given me immense perspective. Because my roughest days, I still say, well, I'm not 24. I'm not rowing a boat to freedom. I don't have a childhood friend that was sent to kill me because they thought I was starting a coup. And I'm not all alone in a country without knowing the language. And I'm not homeless for a week. Those are, I think, some perspectives that really allow me to keep a even keel when it's not really that possible. Because in business, things get thrown at you all day long. Your life gets thrown at you all day long, especially today, how connected we are because of the cell phone. I mean, 20, 30 years ago, it probably would have been a little bit easier to disconnect when you go to work and separate work and home, and you're not really allowed to do that anymore. So you have to really stay crisper and stay on your game. And it's different. So my father's perspective, my mother, their journey, really just set a tone and also just set an amazing example because they told me what was possible. I mean, you're well aware of it being an immigrant in this country that anything's possible here. It doesn't mean it's not going to require a lot of hard work. It doesn't mean it's not going to take time. It doesn't mean that there will not be setbacks. It does not mean that sometimes things will not go your way. What it means is that if you stay consistent, you can go really far.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm still in my early innings at Arrive, but like you said, it has been like 14, 15 years of hard work, multiple failures for first 10 years before. But to your point, as long as you're consistent and don't give up and you come back, with more strength, anything is possible in this country. That's what I love about being here. So tell me about, again, you were growing up, you wanted to be a baseball player, if I'm correct, like that was your
Yeah,
aspiration.
that was my initial goal is to do that, and I'd performed well. My dad played on the Cuban national team, and it was in the genetics. However, I got hit in the eye. That really ended everything. If you're an everyday player and all of a sudden the most important asset in baseball is your vision, and that gets messed up because how you take a ball in the right retina,
Yeah.
that can deter a little bit of things. So I decided to go to college, which it's funny. I was talking to my aunt about this today because tomorrow's my son's birthday. He's
Right.
15 now.
Right. Happy birthday.
And we're talking about my dad, who's been passed now 17 years, because my mom's birthday is Friday and she turns 88. And I was
Wow.
talking to my aunt, and I told her very honestly, I didn't want to go to college. That was something my father wanted. My father didn't have the privilege because he quit school in eighth grade to have to sell mangoes and play baseball to support the family. And that was something he really wanted for me. And I really did it for him, to be honest with you. I did not do it for myself. And, that's one thing that also he gave me a lot of perspective about, especially when you're a leader, when you're the head of a household, anything of that nature, that your life is more about duty, honor, discipline, dedication, and sacrifice than it is really doing what you think at that time is in your best interest. Because at times you're going to do things that are not in your best interest and then turn out to have been in your best interest. Because I got to college, not only did I get to learn, I think college is a great environment where people, it's not about the material they learn, it's really about the skills and the dedication and the time that they learn. They stay to a commitment to something. Originally, I started as a stockbroker, and there's probably people listening that probably don't even know what that is because that doesn't exist anymore. However, I got into mortgages a few years after the 2001 dot-com crash. I was young and didn't really have the experience as a stockbroker to really make it through that market, financial advisor. And I got into mortgages. And as they say, that was 22 years ago, and the rest is history.
Yeah, no, so cool. So my story of my college is so different. I went to a pretty good school, very diverse, and in India they had people coming from all walks of life. But that taught me, how to interact with people from different cultures and kind of mingle with them and respect their ethos
Yeah,
and values. But that was the best 4 years of my life, as I always say. And rest is history, as you probably know. Now let's talk about the topic which I brought up. Empowerment. I know you're big on giving, making others successful, helping them become leaders.
sure.
So in your mind, in your business, in your personal life, with your family, what is truly empowerment? Why do you believe, buying a house is actually empowering American citizens? So maybe throw your perspective on that.
Empowerment's pretty simple. It's you doing something for somebody else's best interest, not yours. I think that's part of the human condition if you've done well. Some people say that's altruistic. Some people say it doesn't exist. I've never seen anybody that wasn't successful that didn't create a lot of successful people. I also know that they also did it for the right reasons. It wasn't just about the result. There was a natural affinity, love for camaraderie, for friendship. Um, does that mean that they were the best of friends? No. However, years later, if they worked together and built something that was bigger than themselves together, there'll always be a fondness there. And I think that's what a lot of things life is about is, that pursuit of camaraderie, that pursuit of community. And nothing really does that better than home ownership. It's something that is at times a little controversial because a lot of people here, and you can attest to this, and this is something that my father taught me is when you were in India, you always heard about the American dream. And the American dream is alive and well. The difference is, though, the American dream is not once you're here in America. And I know that sometimes people don't want to associate that. And it's true because the American dream, think about what it is. It's the dream to be American, to come to this country, to seize these opportunities, rags to riches. That's for the people that aren't in this country. Once you're here, it's really about the gift. You're already here. So you've already been given the opportunity because that's what it is. The American dream is just an opportunity where you have the greatest chance for success. Not going to ever tell you that America's perfect because we've got humans here. And until there's no humans, then, maybe aliens are perfect, but humans aren't perfect. So everything's going to be perfectly imperfect. And I think home ownership just provides that, provides a central location. It provides somewhere you could build wealth. It's somewhere you provide great memories. It's not just, it's why they call it home ownership. It's a home that you're getting and you get to own it. It's something that you turn into. It's not just a house. It's an experience. It's a community. It could be where even nowadays, in particular, not only do you work, do you start businesses? A lot of people even now do everything on video, go to church there. There's so much that you can do in your home today, and it's so vital, I think, more than ever. And that's the essence of empowerment is lifting others up for their sake, not your own. And I think that's what home ownership gets to do.
Yeah, absolutely. That is so incredible. As you said, in my time in India, There was no concept of starting companies. There was so much bureaucracy when I finished my college. If you said you were an entrepreneur, people thought you were unemployed. You are not able to do anything and cannot find a job. So that's kind of how the situation was. I was fortunate to get a chance to come to this country in 2007. Again, you get lucky, as we say, at times, and then rest of it, you have the opportunity. Now you have to prove yourself. So I also want to talk to you about, you have very strong opinions about what is true happiness. So it's not something like you're becoming great, or you're doing something big. So how do you define happiness, as you explain to everyone?
Yeah, my stance is a little controversial. I've been going on it.
So I had to ask you that, but go ahead.
No,
So
I know. I don't. I told you to ask me whatever. I'm always an open book. I think we're a little bit in a happiness crisis in this world, because everything's about you got to be happy. You got to be happy. Well, then the question is, well, what is happiness? What do you mean what happiness is? A lot of times when people describe it, it's talking about joy. You know, I think it's perfectly okay to have joy. I will tell you that, of course. I'm a very joyful person. I think it's also okay to be sad sometimes and to be a little pissed off. And that doesn't mean that it holds you down. I just think that that's a normal sense of emotions that is perfectly okay to have, because if you're always just happy and everything's supposed to be happy, that's bullshit, because that's like sunshine and rainbows. And that's why I say I think we have a happiness crisis. What we should be focused on is making yourself feel proud of yourself. I never knew a single parent on Christmas that saw their kids opening up the gifts, saw their family elated, that was happy. They were proud of the sacrifices they made to make that possible. So people should seek being proud of themselves. They should seek being bold. They should seek being ambitious. They should seek self assurance. And if you seek all that and you get to what it takes, the sacrifices to achieve it, then to the whole world, you would be happy. I'm sure a lot of people would see me on the outside and say, that guy's happy. They completely misunderstood me. I'm proud. I'm proud of the actions I've taken. I'm proud of the continuous work I try to improve. I'm proud that I reflect and I'm always the first one to take ownership if there's something I could have done better. I'm proud of even my failings. That was something that baseball taught me really, really great, that a lot of people need to understand about life, that it's the only sport that you can fail 70% of the time and you're a god. And ironically, though, if you fail 70% of the time, you can barely fail when you're out in the field. So that really teaches you how life really does work and functionality, and just gives you a certain, like I said, perspective. It's always given me to understand how the game of life, the code of life really works more. Understanding where to be forgiveness to people, where to be graceful, and when times to say, nope, you're not living up to the standard. The standards need to get higher, and I don't want to hear the excuses why the standards aren't being met. You find a way to meet the standards. So, yeah, my stance on happiness is a little controversial. I believe that it's not a negative nor positive emotion. I think when you're very proud of yourself, that's very positive. And it's never proud people that do horrific acts. It's proud people who turn the cheek that don't do horrific acts. It's proud people who speak up and have courage when they see something that's out of line. I think if people seeked courage and they seeked gratitude, they would miraculously look very happy.
all right, I think you have a lot of good reasons about why you feel about happiness the way you feel. So kudos for that. People are entitled to their opinions, as we say,
Yeah,
as long as you have a good solid kind of thesis behind that. So I think you also talk about this concept of how do you eat an elephant. So we have a lot of entrepreneurs and brokers who might be listening to this podcast. Things
sure.
have been tough over the last couple of years, and they are facing all these uphill challenges, big battles. So explain to our audience your philosophy of what do you mean by you're eating an elephant, and how should they face current conditions or current situations?
Every task always seems as large as an elephant, because in a lot of times it is. Let's be very honest about it, candid. However, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And what does that mean? It's kind of like the saying you've heard, that you're in the forest, you can't see, and they say, can you see the 2 or 3 steps right in front of you? Yeah, I can see that. Then just take those two. There are going to be times that you can't see the forest through the trees. There are going to be times that something seems so big. However, all ideas, including life, starts from a very small instance. And it's understanding that, saying, okay, if this is my goal, how do I reverse engineer it to get it down to bite size? How do I get it? There was a challenge that I was doing until I hurt my elbow, and I was told I had to stop. But I had a goal that I had to stop halfway through of how do you get to 20,000 push-ups a year? You tell somebody you're going to do 20,000 push-ups, they think you're crazy. However, if I told you it's just 55 a day, it's not that crazy. It's not that crazy anymore.
Hmm.
55 a day,
Yeah.
even if you can only do 5, if you do 5 an hour for 11 hours and you're awake more than that, you can get there. I think at times people make things more complicated, and that's understandable because that could be stressing. To believe it or not, if you want to actually reduce stress, reduce anxiety, is to break it down into bites that you can eat. So that's a saying that I've always liked about how do you eat an elephant, because people understand how large is one bite at a time. Now, I didn't say it may not take 2 or 3 years. I want to be very candid about that. That I think sometimes people either think they're running out of time, or they believe that there's not enough time, or they think it's going to be faster. And a lot of times to earn something, it's taken a long time. I am, what am I, in February of this coming up year, it'll be 20 years that I've been an entrepreneur. 20 years that I went out on my own, and with $1,000 and a dream, started a mortgage broker shop. And as they say, the rest is history. I came from humble beginnings. I did not have the PE money, the family money. I didn't have any of that stuff. I had determination, I had grit, had I've always had, luckily, a lot of desire. And I also felt like I owed it to my family. I've always said that I felt like I've owed things to three, to God, America, and parents. Felt like I owed it to all of them. I felt like I've owed it to this country for what it gave me and it gave my family, to really step up and do that. So, that's just what I think needs to be done, and has to get done for the betterment of everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. For those listening to this in the audience, trying to plan ahead, but then peeling that back into bite-sized chunks that you can actually execute is so valuable and so important. So thank you for that message, Eddie.
Yeah.
I want to talk about some of the events that we had the pleasure and fortune of attending over last 2 3 years. You call them TAG, the American Gift. The show won't be complete without talking about TAG. So I think you already done three events before, and there's a big one coming up next year in June. So tell our audience a little bit more. What prompted you to start these events? We have some of the best speakers we go and listen to. Meet our community. I know it's a big project and expense for you guys.
Hmm.
So what is kind of motivating you to do, the American Gift, if you will, as these events, and then what is the future like? I know you have a big one coming up in June. If you're okay, share what that event will be all about.
Yeah, I mean, the next one's going to be real big. Our goal is to get 1,000 people there. I think once we announce the speakers, we'll probably sell out a lot faster than people think, because the ticket prices are heavily subsidized. People will spend more on an average college football game than they will what these tickets cost. And if you're not willing to invest in yourself, because that'll be one of the first things I get is, can I get a free ticket? No, because you don't have skin in the game and you don't appreciate it. To your point, we have what's called soul in the game, because it's not that we're just asking people to have skin in the game. We have skin in your game. And the reason we have skin in your game is because we're heavily subsidizing those tickets. However, not only do we want you to have an experience, we want you to learn. Um, I think a lot of it, just like I say, goes back to my roots. A lot of people are very good to my family when they got to this country. A lot of people are unaware of this because of today, but Miami was a sleepy Jewish retirement community when my father got there. And my father was homeless his first week, as he jokingly said, coincidentally, how luck would have it, and how you get luck by being consistent and taking chances and taking risks. He happened to have landed the day before Thanksgiving. So there
Wow.
was a lot of food all over the
Wonderful
places
holiday,
and
yeah.
beaches. And he said, it was 70, 80 degrees. So it wasn't that cold at night because it was Miami. However, it was Jewish individuals that gave my father first a chance to work, and really helped him out. And a lot of people have helped him out. A lot of people helped me out. In kindergarten, I didn't know English. First grade, I was struggling, and my parents didn't know any better. And I remember my teacher telling my parents to talk to me in English, and they said, "Have you heard our English? It's horrible." Why would we do that? You know how to teach them the right way. And ironically, I didn't even realize that. However, this is what I learned earlier this year: is the reason I can articulate English so well is because I actually learned it the right way when I was 6 years old, and it was a very slow process, including me having to take speech classes to break my speech accent. Now, I can definitely do a great Tony Montana impersonation like Scarface, because that is how I even spoke English before I was able to break my accent. However, I've been gifted now to be fluent in both languages. And then that was a gift at one point in time when it was a deterrent. But I think when it goes to tag, it's really about that. I also want people to start adopting the if you're here, it really is a gift. It's not a dream. That's, I'm not trying to change people's mind. Like I say, I have my own controversial opinions at times. Like what I talk about is the happiness crisis. I would also tell you that I think there's an American dream crisis. I think people think the American dream was sunshine and rainbows and easy. However, you've seen this time and time again. Even people that come from wealthy parents and then the kids feel horrible about themselves. You know, part of the American dream and was always, and why it's a gift, it's about what you earned and what you did. And I want that to be demonstrated. That's why we put on the event. That's why we bring great speakers, because I believe if people are showing up, even if it may be a vacation or time away, or let me see the speaker, let me see people, there is I do believe in, it's not really osmosis, but they call it osmosis. It's not like you're sleeping with a book underneath your pillow and all of a sudden you get the information. I do believe if you keep putting yourself in the right situation, some of that knowledge transforms some of these conversations. Maybe you don't pick up something in a session, but then when you're talking to somebody else at another session, they bring up something. Or last year when we had Nick Saban and Sarah Blakely,
That
that's
was
what a lot of people
amazing.
felt very, we asked survey questions afterwards, what speaker? And, it was not surprisingly, it was Sarah and um, Coach Saban that really scored really high. However, what it was ironic, when we asked him, who do you think was the most dynamic speaker, Jesse Itzler won by a mile on that one. So
100%. So he was all pumped up, and the
oh,
way
dude,
he,
he was, I was ready to go through a brick wall. My God. He just had a way that really just zoned it in. And, I loved his part about outstanding, because
yeah,
ironically, that's a word I kept always using every time I go to the gym. Yeah, it's early in the morning. People are like, how are you? My trainer will be like, how are you? I said, outstanding. Because
yep.
guess what? I get the privilege, and it's a privilege, um, to be up that early consistently for 20 years to try to take care of my health. I think that's a privilege. I don't think I'm owed anything. I don't think anybody's ever owed anything. I think you have to go out and take what is rightfully yours. At the end, my kids go to the events of TAG, and to bring it full circle, I think it's just another way to really demonstrate the American gift. That's why the first one that we ever did was in Miami. I felt like I needed to do a tribute to where my father arrived, because my father was also the one that really started our family culture here, because my father was the first one on his side here. And then even though he met my mother here, he brought over my aunt and uncle from Cuba, her side. He brought over her parents, my grandparents. He brought everybody over. So my father was the patriarch. So I got to know exactly on both sides of the family how my dad magically pulled everybody together. And then that was from a kid that grew up with very, very low means, who quit eighth grade to sell mangoes and play baseball to support the family, that stole a boat and rode to freedom, and never really learned English. I mean, he learned it, but it was extremely accent, because he didn't get to go to school and refine it. Um, but he managed to get through it. So, that's a lot of a representation, because I do believe it's the American gift. I don't think there's anything like it.
Absolutely. We also appreciate you putting these events together. Arrive has been a proud sponsor from the very first one, and will be sponsoring your June event as well. So again, thank you for doing this. I know it takes a lot to kind of get these events together. Having the speakers, all the logistics, like you said. So we appreciate you doing this for the community. I think as we wrap up, I want to give a shout out for EPM being an Arrive partner since the very early beginning. So we greatly appreciate your support, and to all the brokers listening, if you're not used these guys, they're absolutely awesome. They have an awesome platform which also speaks of empowerment. It's called EPMX. Their products speak to empowerment. They have a DPA program called Empower DPA. So for brokers who are not using EPM, I would highly suggest you give them a shot on any of your deals. You guys are absolutely awesome, and you truly believe in this philosophy of empowerment in everything you do. So my last question, which would be like a fun question, I think as you joined in, your title says Chief Wrestler of Egos. The name kind of gives away what that means, right? I like, in my company as well. So I generally say I have to be humble myself. If you have an ego with you, everybody will start building their own ego. So, but help us understand, like, what do you mean by say that are you wrestling people's egos? Is that what you mean, or?
Yeah, no, it's look, you're a CEO, you understand. When you're a CEO, I heard something from a friend named Adrian, who's president of a Valentine, investment advisors. He says you're continuously engaging others. That's what CEO stands for. I said, I don't know. I think that's part of it, but I think you're really the chief wrestler of egos. One thing that I always have in a lot of my meetings is I literally get people to physically hang up their egos. I think ego, that saying ego is not your amigo. I agree with it. I think a lot of times, I said it on stage. Another controversial issue that I have is forget your feelings. I think your feelings betray you because I don't think they're really your feelings. I think they're your ego trying to manipulate you. I didn't say that you can't understand how you feel, but like I say, if you're feeling anxious, take a walk. If you're feeling empty, call a friend you haven't talked to in a long time. If you're feeling down, start working out. If you're feeling stressed out, start meditating. I didn't say that you don't have those feelings. What I do say is don't cave into them and don't let them, run your life. There's nothing more dangerous in this world than somebody that is wrapped up constantly in their feelings. Very, very dangerous. And look, that I get my perspectives a little bit different there. You know, my dad died, and I had to go to work on Monday because I had a 1-year-old at home. I didn't really have much time to mourn because I also know that he wouldn't have wanted me to mourn in that way, just mourn over time and appreciate the time we had. But yeah, your job as CEO is you're wrestling the egos, and there's nobody bigger egos than your C-suite. And I say that with a lot of love to them because you have to understand that energy. You have to also understand where they're coming from. And a lot of times when you're getting them to hang up your ego, what you're really doing is challenging them to embrace conflict so they do not appease. History has taught us that appeasement is the worst thing that you can do. A lot of people do it though. Oh, don't rock, same appeasement can come in a lot of words. Don't rock the boat. Let's just have some harmony here. Sure, while resentment gets built, things like that. So you don't attack people, but you really got to be inquisitive, ask a lot of questions, and literally break down to what's going on. Because usually it'll be that somebody doesn't feel heard. Growing up in the 80s and 90s, I liked the old WWF and wrestling and all that. So I think that that's what you're doing half the time. So, and Ric Flair was one of our first, influencers that we had. I think there's just a lot of fun to it because when I say that, oh, I'm the chief wrestler of egos, everybody understands what you're dealing with. And the egos are everywhere and there's nothing wrong with it. That's not going to change. However, the way you react can change. The way you can diffuse the situation changes. The way that you're like, hey, look, I hear you. You got to hang up your ego, man. We got to do it. This is for what, like I say, what empowerment is about. Looking out for their best interest, not your own, is really understanding that that's how you lift everybody up. You can't lift everybody up if there isn't a real altruistic motive. I understand that other people have different motives. They may have more of a Machiavellian approach or a narcissist approach. It's just, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I judge them because I don't. I think it's really, really hard to think. So think first. Think long and hard before you act and before you judge because it's really easy to do the other ones. I think you should teach people and have them hang up those egos by teaching them that you're going to feel no matter what. Do you act or do you think? And that's going to separate a lot of the differences. And usually when people get themselves in trouble with their egos, because their ego wants them to act. Because what your ego is your mind trying to keep you safe. And that's what your mind was built for. It's 2% of our body weight, 20% of our oxygen, 20% of our energy that gets used every day. So
Yep.
It's just a lot of fun when I write CWE. I have it on LinkedIn. That's actually a personal one. a lot of the things that I use, I always give credit to who taught me that or where I learned it from. But Chief Wrestler of Egos really is an original of mine.
That's so cool. So yeah, I think Eddie, you're a person of deep thoughts, and you have a lot of good philosophical aspects to life, and I really enjoyed talking to you. So thank
Like
you again for taking the time out of your busy schedule. We appreciate that. Thank you.